I've been playing Euro Truck Simulator at the moment, and there's nothing that I love more than climbing into a man and backing him onto my heavy load. Euro Truck Simulator is never going to compete with the likes of Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. It's a game that has succeeded by completely ignoring the mainstream. It's found its audience by focusing on just one thing and perfecting a very specific and deeply satisfying experience. And funnily enough, that's the perfect way to introduce TRIMUI, because this is a company that has built its entire reputation on asking the exact question that I failed to ask for years. Not how much power can we get into this device, but how good can we make the experience? I made a big mistake in ignoring the original Smart Pro. I dismissed it because it just wasn't powerful enough. I was so focused on what it couldn't do that I completely missed what it was doing brilliantly. Because people absolutely love the Smart Pro. I mean, they really love it with a passion that's normally reserved for a family pet or a really good parking space. I listened to a 42-year-old man on Discord explain for 11 minutes, why the D-pad was chef's kiss, whilst his wife shouted in the background that the chef could kiss her backside because his lasagna was going cold. He didn't care. And it wasn't until I bought a brick to review that I suddenly realised what TRIMUI had been getting right all this time. And it turns out that Lasagna Man may have had a point. So when TRIMUI announced the Smart Pro S, I thought, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. No, I'm going to make some completely different mistakes instead. Because this time I actually understood what TRIMUI were trying to do and why it mattered. Clickable analog sticks, active cooling, a processor that's 2.5 times faster. These specs are what the community has been asking for since the original launched. Well, now the Smart Pro S is here. It's currently on pre-order and it's shipping in a few weeks. It costs $100. And look, I need to say this right up front. This is not the most powerful device at this price point. The Allwinner A523 chip is solid, but you can get more raw performance elsewhere. So why am I even talking about this? Well, because there is something special about those previous TRIMUI units. And despite the spec sheet, I'm wondering if they're going to surprise us yet again and deliver something that ends up being far greater than the sum of its parts. And TRIMUI actually does seem to listen to the community. The Smart Pro S has clickable analog sticks because people wanted clickable analog sticks. It has active cooling because people wanted better thermal management. It's got TMR sticks, which, you know, at this price point for a budget handheld, I think this is the first time that I've ever seen that. And it keeps the form factor that made people fall in love with the original. This is what happens when a company reads forum posts instead of thinking that innovation is using whatever bit of coloured plastic they can find left over on the shop floor. The question isn't whether it's the most powerful option, because frankly it isn't. The question is whether a plucky, well-built underdog can win a fight against a brute whose only real skill is being able to open a particularly stubborn jar. Whether that premium experience is worth the trade-off. Whether a device that feels brilliant to hold and use can compete with devices that just offer more raw performance. Let's find out if this upgrade's going to keep you trim or slaps you so hard it smarts. The PlayStation Vita has this almost mythical status in the handheld world. Sony created something that just hit the right mark. The dual analog sticks, the perfect weight, that gorgeous OLED screen, and then it absolutely flopped. But look, as a piece of hardware, it was brilliant. Along with the 3DS and NDS, it's one of the few consoles that still gets people's hearts racing. I don't see many people making videos about modding their original PS2. I'm sure they're out there. But Vita fans will absolutely insist that you haven't truly played a game until you've played it in the original Vita. TRIMUI seems to understand this, and in 2023 they released the Smart Pro to capture that same feeling, same sort of form factor. A 4.96-inch IPS screen at 720p resolution, an Allwinner A123 Plus chip that handled PlayStation 1 beautifully, dabbled in some N64 and could manage bits of PSP, TRIMUI designed with clear limitations and executed rather brilliantly. Okay, it's getting on a bit. I mean, 720p is, well, now it just about buys you a bag of chips and a Coke. Look, what I'm saying is that despite its age, I've seen people thrilled to finally get one of these devices right up until last week. And that's because TRIMUI really understands the build quality. The brick is premium, solid construction, screens that don't look economized, buttons with proper tactile feedback. And this is something I didn't appreciate until I actually held one in my hands. The difference between a device that technically works and one that feels good to use is enormous. TRIMUI has never tried to compete on raw power alone. They're not cramming in the latest chips or promising that you'll be playing Switch games at full speed. They're selling you the experience, the feeling. I've likened them to the Rolex of budget handhelds, because whilst a cheaper device might technically be more capable, like one of those Casio calculator watches, what TRIMUI delivers is a package that feels premium and performs competently enough to make people smile. The Smart Pro was comfortable, well built, shamelessly copied Sony's best ideas, and delivered solid performance. People loved it. People still love it. And now, TRIMUI has improved it based on actual community feedback. Enter the Smart Pro S. The headline upgrade is the processor. The Allwinner A123 Plus is out. The Allwinner A523 is in. Now, unless you spend your evenings memorizing processor specifications whilst everybody else is at the pub having meaningful human relationships, don't judge me. Look, those numbers might not mean much to you, so let me translate. The A523 is supposedly 2.5 times faster. In practical terms, that means smoother PlayStation 1 and PSP and 64, that sort of thing. Everything under PS2 should run significantly better, although we can't say that it'll all run perfectly. And until we've got the units in our hand, that's pretty much all we can say. This stuff is going to need testing. It's not going to suddenly become an emulation monster, but early reports suggest that the A523 is at least 20% faster than the Rockchip RK3568. That means it's punching respectably in its weight class, although I suppose punching in its weight class is the kind of phrase that sounds impressive but could also describe somebody getting into a fight at a wedding. For context, this should be at least 20% faster, very probably more, than Ambernic's recently announced RGDS. They'll play roughly the same catalogue, but the Smart Pro S should handle games considerably better. But TRIMUI doesn't really seem to be competing with Anbernic either. They've carved out their own audience and they want to capture their current customers and deliver what those customers have actually been requesting. The most requested feature was the clickable analog sticks, L3 and R3 support, and TRIMUI delivered. The new sticks are larger, more responsive, and they click. They're TMR sticks as well, which is basically the next step up from Hall Effect, if you didn't know. The 8-bit Do Pro 3 has them, and they're lovely. So that should add considerably to the experience. They've added active cooling, and I think that we're going to start to see active cooling on sub-$100 machines in the very near future. Certainly, Mangme've got them. I think the Air Mini's got them as well. It's the kind of detail that sounds minor until you've owned a device that thermal throttles during a boss fight. Well, now you can fight with your boss as much as you want, probably about playing games instead of doing your work. There's now a dedicated home button for quicker menu access, a reset button. The power button has been redesigned to feel smoother. They're just tiny quality of life improvements. You won't appreciate any of these until you've owned a device where pressing a power button feels like trying to push your finger through particularly stubborn concrete. The Wi-Fi's been upgraded, and, I'm actually interested in seeing what that does. I'm interested to see if it can handle streaming at all, because certainly Moonlight was on the Crossmix, I think, for the Brick Hammer. The system compatibility has been improved, memory management enhanced despite keeping the same 1 gig of RAM. They've specifically mentioned a smoother PSP and PS1 experience and Dreamcast performance in the marketing materials, and you should have good experience with N64 as well. The screen remains the same 4.96-inch IPS panel at 1280 by 720 pixels. The battery is still 5,000 mAh. The overall dimensions are essentially unchanged. If you love the form factor of the original, then you should feel right at home with the S. What TRIMUI have done here is essentially brought the band back together and given them a rather impressive support act. This is thoughtful, iterative upgrade. This is how you should do an upgrade cycle properly. It's not revolutionary. It's not claiming to change everything. It's just taking something that's good and making it better in specific ways that matter to the core audience. But we're in an odd time at the moment where disruptors are entering the market and they're promising to shake things up. I've mentioned the Mangmi Air X on this channel before, and I'm working on a review of it at the moment. The Snapdragon 662 is so much more powerful than the Allwinner A523, and Android gives you more flexibility than Linux for apps and streaming. Your mileage may vary, of course. Some people much prefer Linux and have every right to. The Mangmi handles PSP admirably, nails N64, and even manages some 3DS, PS2 and GameCube titles, which is impressive for under $100. The package is really compelling, and Mangmi isn't alone. Ioneo and Magic X both have products around the same price point that can give the Smart Pro S a run for its money. Mangmi have made a serious impact. For every person I've seen excited about the premium feel and Vita-like design of the Smart Pro S, there's another one asking, why pay $100 for this when Mangmi offers more power for less? But you know what? I'm actually quite excited about this device, and maybe that's because I ignored the Smart Pro for such a long time. But with the original Smart Pro and with the brick, TRIMUI took specs that didn't quite compete in their price bracket and made desirable machines anyway. It wasn't until I held the brick in real life that I understood exactly why so many people kept banging on about it. The original Smart Pro was the same, giving people the PS Vita form factor that they loved and letting them play their entire catalogue of pre-PS1 games on it. The TRIMUI Smart Pro S does exactly what an iterative upgrade should do. It takes something good and it makes it better in ways that matter to the people who actually use these devices. It's not promising the moon. It's just a high-end budget handheld that plays retro games comfortably and looks good doing it. At least, that's what it looks like from the specs. I mean, we're going to have to wait to see what it's actually like when the units ship, when people get them in their hands, and when reviewers like me can finally get hold of one and go, hey, it does this! Whatever that's worth, I mean, whether it might be worth your money to you, I don't know. That just depends entirely on what you need and what you already own. If you've been waiting for this specific device to exist, then congratulations, it's here! And it looks like TRIMUI listened. But this might not be for everybody. In fact, I know it won't be. If you want the most raw power at this price point, then your best bet is probably the Ioneo Pocket Air Mini. But that's not everybody's cup of tea either. I think TRIMUI is going to do what they've done before with this thing. They will find a pocket of the handheld space that will adore this device. It'll be just the right size, fit more comfortably in their hands, and if TRIMUI's track record is anything to go by, it'll feel like you're playing a much more premium device. A year ago, I would have dismissed this outright because the specs just didn't compete. Now I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on one. That's what TRIMUI does. They change how you think about what matters in a handheld. And ultimately, the discussion boards are going to be split right down the center on this one. One side is going to see an overpriced, underpowered device in a highly competitive market. The other side is going to see a company that listened to its fans and perfected a beloved design. And the truth is, neither side is wrong. But I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Is this something that you're jumping on? Are you more interested in the more powerful devices at this price point? I'm sure a lot of people will say that this is too underpowered for them, but I'd also really love to hear from the people who are interested in this device. I certainly don't think that this is as easy a decision as people might make it out to be. Some people are going to want the power, some people are going to want the form factor or the experience, and nobody's wrong, because it all comes down to your personal preference and what you want to play at the end of the day. But that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll come and join me in the next one. And if you would, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the lights on your way out. Until next time, happy gaming.